Frees the feed for a cross into the near post. Healy! They win away in Newcastle for the first time in almost 5 years.
Sean Fryer skips past Taylor Young, but she is quick. Fryer, decision to make, centering ball, and an even better finish. Sean Fryer tucks it away into the far corner.
Here's another chance for the Wanderers. Lovely threaded through ball for Holly Caspers. She makes absolutely no mistake. Central Coast Mariners' home record is breached. The Western Sydney Wanderers have won for only the second time this season.
Ball forward for Holly McNamara to chip in. Holly McNamara! And Melbourne City answer the challenge. The fortress has been breached.
Elliott finds none. She shoots and quite magnificently racks up all 3 competition points.
Kassar is going to swing her boot towards it. Oh, fantastic save. A second crack for Kennedy White. It's always alive and there to be won, and in it comes. It's a superb save. For the first time in 33 head-to-head meetings, there is no breakthrough in the Big Blue.
Just 2 points separating second and ninth on the Ninja A-League ladder. Talk about fine margins. Hello and welcome to Dubzone. It's lovely to have your company. I'm Narlene Masto, joined by A-League's commentator, Teo Palazzeri. How are you, Teo?
Great to see you, Narlene.
And one of our favourite returning guests, Annabelle Martin. How are you?
Good, thank you. Can't wait to tell Bianca Galich about that.
We love you too, Bianca. Do not worry. Now, let's kick it off, as we always do, with our moment of the round. I'm sorry, Annabelle, this is going to be a little awkward, but it is, for me, 17-year-old Talia Younis, the incredible assist for Holly Casper's goal. Just the IQ she has, the vision to glide past the defender, let the ball play out and deliver a perfect cross for Holly Casper's second goal. I know that was a tough one to concede, but you got to give it to her. That was pretty good.
Yeah, you just butted me up to throw that one sneakily in there.
It was decent. Now, on to your moment of the round. What stood out to you?
I thought Heather Hinz' performance against Sydney FC between the sticks was a big reason they were able to come away with a point here, especially these 2 saves against her fellow American in white. Yeah, I thought she was terrific, and yeah, a big reason why they could come away with a draw.
In sensational form, the American goalie Heather Hinz for Sydney FC. Well, unfortunately, we did receive some really sad news overnight before recording on Wednesday, depending on where you may be watching, the passing of Rado Vidošić, a coach with a lengthy involvement in the Australian game at both A-League men's and women's level. You see here, Rado was the coach of Melbourne City's perfect season, undefeated all the way through as they won in 2019-20, both the Premiership and the Championship. Of course, he was also the father of Dario Vidosic, who went on to be a Socceroo and a coach in his own right. Incredibly tragic to lose him at just 64 years of age. A lot of tributes coming in from players, administrators, people connected to Rado in the game, and a really sad moment, but we say Vale, rest in peace.
Absolutely. To echo your sentiment, Teo, I mean, the mark he's left on not only Aussie football, but particularly women's football, will continue to live on. So we are sending our condolences to the Vidosic family, and I'm sure there'll be an outpouring of love and support this weekend as well. Now, heading into the action that unfolded over the weekend in the Ninja A-League. Starting off across the ditch, it was Wellington Phoenix who continued their fine form. A 3-1 win against Adelaide United, and Annabelle, the Knicks have moved from 9th place to 2nd. That just really is a testament to how close the competition is at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see that over the next few weeks. We're chopping and changing whoever's in line for finals, just given how close the league is, and every game matters. I think we've seen that now, and every game is winnable for anyone in the league.
A former teammate of yours, Brooke Nunn, popped up with a double. Just goes from strength to strength, Brooke Nunn. You've had the perspective of Brooke as a teammate. What are you seeing now that she's in an opposing side?
I think she's just playing so confidently with the ball at her feet, and clearly really enjoying her football and playing with that passion that we've all seen. And she's really, finding the back of the net and really linking up with her teammates really, really well here. And she's a big reason where Wellington have had a great couple of weeks as well.
Now, there was a clear goal-scoring opportunity that was denied. It wouldn't be an A-League's game without a controversial decision from the ref, Marissa Vandermeer. There was a challenge just 40 seconds into the match. Should the referee have given a red card for this one here, Annabelle?
I chat to the referees a lot during the game. We have some beautiful conversations out there, and what they always tell me is that if there is a covering defender, then it means a lot. So I think the referee here will see Mackenzie Barry and consider her that covering defender, and therefore, given the yellow card, I thought Wirtz played it really, really well where she's cut off Vandermeer's run. So Vandermeer's either clipping the back of her ankles or slowing down completely.
Gee, it was a cynical foul, though. Absolutely no attempt to play the ball, just wipes out Wirtz. And look, credit to Mackenzie Barry for getting into the referee's frame of vision to make that decision a yellow. But I honestly wouldn't have disputed a red. I do think it was denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity.
Well, it's time to hear from what Wellington Phoenix head coach Bev Priestman had to say.
You know, today we were clinical. We weren't necessarily... It wasn't a great performance. I thought the first half I was frustrated. I thought we were leggy. It was flat. But we were clinical. And I think that's the difference maybe this season.
Despite the win, she's setting high standards, still improvement to be done. But Teo, when I came on the show a couple of weeks ago, broke the news about Samba's knee, there was a bit of, I guess hysteria about how that would impact their momentum, but it doesn't seem to be the case at all. They back-to-back wins. Could this potentially be the time that they seal their first ever spot in finals football?
Well, I think a lot of credit has to go to both Priestman's management and also the club. It's one thing to have, a big Rolodex full of contacts that you can bring in as injury replacements, but both Michaela Woods, who's now scored 2 goals, and Mackenzie Anthony, who came off the bench in this game, they only get to New Zealand because the club has backed Bev, flying them out, giving them accommodation. Clubs can make injury replacement signings, but it's still a financial commitment because you also still have to pay the wages of the player who got injured in order to be replaced. So real credit to the Phoenix there. What about the point that she thought the Phoenix were leggy? I guess when you scored 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, you have the luxury of being able to stand off, and Adelaide themselves, coming off a midweek game, really just lacked the energy to try and get back in the game.
Yeah, I think when you go 2 goals up early, you can really dictate the game, and the ball was quite literally in Adelaide's court there to really bring it to them and try and find a way to get back in the game. I think if, they score one here and it goes to 2-1, then it puts a bit more pressure on Wellington, and maybe that legginess does come back to hurt them. But no, I thought they played out the game really, really well and got a really good win against a good side.
As for Adelaide United, they'll be disappointed. Their 5-match unbeaten streak was snapped, but earlier in the week, they did pick up that win against Newcastle Jets, their first win away against Newcastle in almost 5 years. But Annabelle, it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy season for the Reds. What have you made of their campaign so far? Yeah,
I think they were a little bit maybe slow to get off the blocks there, considering they had a very similar squad to they've had last year, which took them all the way up to a semi-final against Melbourne Victory. So obviously new coach as well, but similar system, similar game style. I think maybe just the results just weren't really falling their way. I don't think they were playing poorly by any means, but sometimes, you just let a game slip here or there and whatnot. But 5 games unbeaten, it's a good little streak to have, and it's a long season, so you can really build into it and start to show you consistency off towards the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a hard marker on Adelaide because Theo Siunis inherited a team that finished 3rd, was clearly better than the rest of the league, and really only had to get over the hump against the top 2, the 2 teams from Melbourne. But it just felt as though whether it was being committed to playing recruits in the off-season, for whatever reason, Zoe Tolland not in the team, but now has come back and stabilised the defence, and also Sarah Morgan, 33 minutes until that Newcastle game, comes straight in, plays a full 90, and the midfield looked a lot better. So maybe they're just working their way back to where they finished last season, but that leads me to say, well, you should be closer to pushing Melbourne City for the title. I guess they do still have the 2 head-to-heads against Melbourne City to prove maybe that they do belong in the conversation.
We'll see how their season plays out. They'll be looking to regroup and get back to an unbeaten streak. But now onto a very special moment we saw in the Ninja A-League. It feels like each week we talk about a new youngster that's burst onto the scene, and there was another one. It was Melbourne City's 17-year-old Kaya Jukovic. She's the junior Matildas captain, and she made her first ever appearance in the Ninja A-League, so let's learn a little bit more about her.
Kaya Jukovic, the 16-year-old, is going to make her debut, but their development player who captained the junior Matildas.
This is the league where you see our future Matildas. My favourite A-League memory would be walking out onto the pitch as a mascot for the Melbourne City vs Victory Women's Derby in 2017, so I would have been 8 years old. Walking out with, I think it would have been like Steph Catley, Stoddy would have still been in the side, Kaya Simon, Lydia Williams. So yeah, just walking out alongside those stars, like when I was that age, it was pretty special, and at Amy Park as well. So.
Unreal. From being a mascot to now making her pro debut, Teo, is Kaya one to watch?
Absolutely. Her performances for the Australian under-17 national team have been exceptional. Interesting to see what role she will evolve into, because at junior level, from what I've seen at the Emerging Matildas Championship, she does sit a little bit deeper in midfield, whereas I think in junior national teams she's been pushed more into the front third. So good to have that sort of versatility. And Melbourne City's, it's very tough to get off the bench. They do leave unused subs sitting in quite a lot of their games. So credit to her for being patient and finally getting onto the pitch to make that first appearance.
And she's going to have pretty good mentors in that Melbourne City team as well. And it was her side who picked up that 2-0 win against Perth Glory. This was Glory's first loss at the Sam Kerr Football Centre this season. And who else but Holly McNamara to get things going, Teo. And this goal right here, chip over the goalkeeper, just set the tone for what was to come.
And really frustrating for Perth, because they just subbed off Tian McKenna, so they already had a makeshift centre-back, and you see Misha Anderson there, the player that Holly McNamara reads the bounce just a little bit better than. So you're replacing one makeshift centre-back with another, and it kind of reached the tipping point for Perth Glory. The thing I take out of this game is they didn't have a single shot from inside the penalty area, only had 4 shots for the game. Once Melbourne City took the lead, it was going to be really an uphill battle for Perth. I know they scored at Amy Park in the first head-to-head. This game was nowhere near as open, and Melbourne City were able to stifle Perth at home. And the magic they had at Sam Kerr Football Centre seems to have run out, at least for now.
And Annabelle, going up against a player like Holly McNamara, what is it about her game that makes it so difficult to defend?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is her speed, at which she can accelerate from jogging to a fast sprint. Obviously, it's hard as a defender to try and match that acceleration. But at the same time, I think what's underrated with her is her football IQ. You see here, she always seems to pop up in the right moments, and you might think that that's luck and the ball's falling her way. But I think for her, she reads the play really, really well and gets herself into those positions where she can score, and she has been clinical, which I think is the reason that City can have 4 shots and score 2 goals.
14 goal involvements, 11 matches, in fine form ahead of the Women's Asian Cup, and she's sitting top of that Golden Boot standings as we see there. But it is your teammate.
Come on, Raz.
Go on, Annalise. She's sitting just 2 goals behind her. I know who you're backing. What does Annalise need to do to just continue her fine form and maybe overtake Holly to get that Golden Boot?
Oh, I think she just needs to continue what she's been doing. I think Raz has really taken up a level this year of consistency and finding the back of the net, but also linking up with players around her. I think her and Peter Trimmis have a tremendous relationship of being on the same page and knowing where each other are going to be. So, yeah, I'm backing in Raz any day of the week to hopefully grab that, and hopefully, she can get that boot and we can celebrate with her.
The other thing as well with the Golden Boot standing, Teo, is Peter Trimmis also on there with 4 goals. The goals are shared amongst this Mariners team, whereas for Melbourne City, it does feel like a lot of their attack is sort of coming through Holly McNamara. So arguably makes it more impressive that, you're not just dependent on one player for the goals up top. Now, for Perth Glory, their head coach, Stephen Peters, fair to say he was absolutely raging after that game. Again, with a referee decision, the fact that Alexia Apostolakis wasn't shown a second yellow card, Teo.
Yeah, so this was interesting because you had to be kind of eagle-eyed, I think, in the moment. And then Stephen Peters, if you listen keenly, you can hear him blowing up at the 4th official. So these were his post-match quotes. And, his description of the referee saying that she might be Nostradamus in order to anticipate what a player's going to do. I think there was a lot of subtlety, though, in the challenge from Apostolakis, and we'll look at the footage, but Peters there, you can see how unhappy he was with the decision not to show a second yellow. It was only in the first half, so it would have changed the game. But as we go to the footage, Apostolakis, this is the first yellow card, just a subtle body check on Susan Fonson-Cam. And the goalkeeper might have got there regardless, though, so it's almost a needless yellow card. Annabelle, this is the second one, that grab there. The ball is a long way away, but this was enough for Perth to argue. And even Alicia Ferguson in the match commentary said that Apostolakis is very lucky not to receive a second yellow.
Yeah, I thought the first one, she's kind of gone to shepherd the ball and maybe not realise that Fong Song Cam was coming up the inside. I think you're allowed to shield the ball, and from what I hear again from the referees from our many chats, you are allowed to go shoulder to shoulder. I think what gets her the yellow in the first one is she does lift that elbow just a little bit at the end. But like you said, I think the keeper would have got there anyway. So probably a bit needless from Apostolakis. On the second one, it's kind of, pretty far away for the referee. You're not really sure if they're grabbing each other there. Again, it's a tough one, but I mean, good luck to Stephen Peters getting many goals for the rest of the season. I know there's a bit of a referee union out there, and he's probably playing a bit of a dangerous game there.
Well, but you play the same position as Alexia. How often do you find yourself getting into collisions like that over the course of a game? And how often do you walk away from a challenge thinking, maybe I'm a little bit lucky? Do you feel as though you are primarily more lucky or more unlucky with some of the physical engagements that you make?
No, I never go away thinking I'm unlucky. It's a tough one. Obviously, it's a physical game, and I played on Susan a couple of weeks ago, and she definitely is a physical player and likes to be a bit grabby and kind of you do that a little bit back as well. So any sort of attack and defender, you always have that little bit of physicality. So it is a little bit hard to say which way it initiates or which way it goes. But I think Apostolakis just takes that one and runs with it. Good luck to Perth for the rest of the year.
Well, there wasn't any audio on that one, but if you did, you would have heard Stephen Peters absolutely fuming, and it was a clear decision for him. But now moving on to a bit of a sad news that we received earlier last week. It was that Chloe Berryhill was forced into an early retirement after the injury she sustained against Brisbane Roar a couple of weeks ago was in fact a severe knee injury. This is really devastating news because we know she made the move from Italy to hopefully make a late run in to the Women's Asian Cup. But make no mistake about it, the legacy she has set in Aussie football will continue to live on. 59 Matildas caps, 2 Ninja A-League championships, so it's only right to look back at some of her finest moments.
It's Elise Perry, replaced by a youngster who's got dynamite in the toes, Chloe Logarzo.
Logarzo, top corner pigeon. How about that from Chloe Logarzo?
Now, Logarzo, it slipped past Wyman, and the roommates have been working on that celebration for a while. Logarzo! 2-goal buffer restored, and Chloe Logarzo thumps one in.
The power was too much to handle. 2019 champions, Sydney FC!
Thunderous strike from Rangers. Logarzo doing the same here. Oh my word! And lifting it into the box and sits up. Logarzo! This is a player that just knows how to make things happen.
The in-swing of Blanich, tricky one to deal with, and it's bundled into the back of the net from who else but Chloe Logarzo.
Yeah, big moment for me to have my wife in the stands, and I kept this a surprise. We always talked about how I wasn't going to change my name from Logarzo to Berryhill until I retired, but I thought it was about time.
As Matos drives the ball in, and they find one. Chloe Berryhill, the Matilda makes her mark.
I will be content when I retire because I've put everything that I can out there and just see where I get with it.
What a career, what a legacy. Chloe Berryhill, thank you for everything you've given to the Ninja A-League. And Annabelle, you pointed yourself out earlier in the clip. You've played against her a couple of times. Is there any sort of lasting memories you have of what it was like to play against someone like her?
I just think, played against her a few times, and what I took away is just she's such a competitor. I think whenever you saw her coming up against her, you just knew you were in for a tough day, and I think she's one of those players that you hate to play against but would love to play with. Obviously, I'm friends with a lot of her teammates, and they speak so highly of the high standards that she drove. And I had a little moment with her in the tunnel this year in her first game back in the A-League, and you could see how excited she was to be back playing. It's a bit heartbreaking that she doesn't get her fairy tale ending, I guess. But I think it does sum up her career, really, putting her body on the line for her team time and time again. So it's really sad to see her go, but it's obviously a career she can be very, very proud of.
And I think always a sense of adventure and also wanting to be a leader, because she could have stayed in the comfort zone of Sydney FC, but went to Newcastle because she wanted the responsibility in 2015-16 of being one of the players who carried the burden of leading that team. And I do wonder, after a break and a bit of time to realise that the playing career is over, what is Chloe Berry-Hill's future in football? Could she be a coach? Could she be an administrator? We know that she's excellent at analysing the game, so she'll always be welcome in the media. But there's a lot of talk about who's going to be a coach or who's going to come from the golden generation to increase the number of female coaches. And I would hope that Chloe Berry-Hill gets the bug, even if it's not there now, at some point in the future. Because the way people talk about her leadership and the word you used, Annabelle, standards, I think that's what you look for in a coach to set the tone at any club.
The game will be better for having her in as a coaching capacity as well. So we do wish her all the very best in her recovery. But despite the news, Western Sydney Wanderers still managed to stay focused at the task at hand and pick up that 2-1 win against Annabelle's Central Coast Mariners. Annabelle, I hate to kind of bring up this topic, but tell us what unravelled in this game.
Yeah, I just think that we really struggled to break down their block, really struggled to pierce through, and I think we gave them way too many chances in our execution, and props to them, they really made us pay for it. Holly Caspers finding the back of the net twice. I thought, yeah, her second header was obviously a really good one as well. We were able to manage to get a goal back here with some tricky feet from Avani Prakash, but it just wasn't the performance we were after, and looking to bounce back this weekend.
I can ask you direct, because that Prakash assist is fantastic, but it was one of only 5 passes for the entire game that the Mariners completed into the penalty area, and the only pass completed in the second half into the penalty area was a long ball in the 85th minute. How is it that the Wanderers were able to take ownership of that central corridor and stop your players getting into where they can be so dangerous? Because you see a goal like that, you see an assist like that from Prakash, you think, all right, well, that's the model, we want to replicate it. What was stopping you from replicating it? What was forcing you wide throughout the entire game?
Yeah, obviously they were playing with a 3-back, which turned into a 5-back when their wing backs dropped in, and they kind of sat there, and we found it really struggled to break the line, because Harrison was the one that was dropping and really offering that kind of sweeper depth. So we found that. So then on that goal, I think we've come off the front and Peter's come inside and kind of used that space in front of the defence, but I don't think we nearly did that as much, rather than forcing balls in behind.
I thought that this was Wang Ying's best performance for Wanderers since arriving in Australia from China. I also thought this was one of Amy Harrison's better games of the season, but I don't think it's replicable for the Wanderers. I think giving the other team the ball and hoping they have an off day is not necessarily repeatable. So the next time an opponent gives the Mariners the ball, Annabelle, and says, all right, we're going to give you 55, 60% of possession, what do you think has to change? Because I honestly thought the first 15 minutes of the game meandered, and but you almost let Wanderers settle into the game, keep a clean sheet for the first 15 minutes, rather than really try to take the game to them and put them on the back foot.
Yeah, I think we need to be a bit more strategic with where we keep that possession of the ball. I think it was a lot deeper where Wanderers didn't really need to step out and press. So I think we just needed to learn to how can we beat that first time, get players like Avani, who's so good when she's driving on the ball facing forward, and get midfielders facing forward on that ball, driving, committing defenders, and then finding Raz, and Raz is so clinical up there as well. So I think, we just needed to be a bit more concisive with what we were doing with our possession.
One last one. That is 3 wins from 3 at Polytech for the Western Sydney Wanderers. So is there a mental switch off within the group? Because you guys have gone to their place and you win away at Wanderers Football Park, but they have now won 3 seasons in a row at Gosford. Is that just pure fluke or coincidence, or do you think that there is something which they like about the venue, or which happens in your camp when you look at the fixture and you say, oh, it's Wanderers at home this week?
No, I can't say it crossed my mind one bit. I will say that our goal for the year was to make Polytech Stadium a fortress, and that's our first loss on there for the season. So that's disappointing for us. But no, by no means do we think that we're playing Western Sydney Wanderers at home and we're worried. I think we love playing at home with our fans and everyone there. It's a beautiful stadium. So you might have to ask the Wanderers girls about that one if they love coming up the coast.
Well, you have a chance to redeem yourselves, but it ain't going to be easy against Brisbane Roar because they are on a 5-match unbeaten run as well. Come back from behind win against Canberra United. doing well without the likes of Grace Quilami and Tamika Yallop. Annabelle, what challenges do you see them throwing here? That's a great goal, by the way.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge to keep out of the back of net if they're hitting them like that. But, I mean, Brisbane, quality side. I think, 3-2 win last time we played them, and it was a really tough, hard-fought win. And this Friday night's going to be no different. I think their counter-attacks when they get going are really hard to beat. So, going to be a tough day out, especially for me looking at Sian Fryer right here, just running down that left-hand wing. But no doubt we're up for the job. And I'm excited. I want to play on the best players in the league, and I think she's right up there.
Back to the New Year's Eve game where you got the better of in 3-2. This was an impressive win. Canberra just missed an open header from Sienna Dale to make it 2-2, and then Brisbane go down the other end and seal it with a 3-1 win. But I thought that had Canberra scored that header and got away with a 2-2 draw, Brisbane had largely been the better team for a lot of the game, and it was due to Canberra just not being able to set traps in midfield, and too many times Brisbane, whether it was Ashley Miller, Benti Jansen or Fryer on the wing, were able to run with the ball and run into space. And that's one thing that the Mariners, Izzy Gomez in particular in the New Year's Eve game, just a couple of challenges to let Jansen know who runs the midfield, who's the boss in the yard, was perhaps the difference between the two teams. You do mention the injuries, and Roar are a slightly different looking team now. They're also playing a lot of players in different positions. You don't know whether Medman's playing on the right or left. You don't know whether Miller is playing at fullback or central midfield. So I imagine the prep this week is going to be pretty complex for you. Yeah, I mean, they've obviously played a few different formations this season. When we played them back in New Year's Eve, it was the fullback, and then on the weekend we did see the three-back. So whether that's to match Canberra, who also play a three-back as well, I guess it's something we're just going to have to prepare for and see what we come up against. But I think you don't know what you don't know, so you kind of do have to get out there and like you said, we just got to back ourselves in and play our game and see what they do. I thought that game on New Year's Eve was Izzy at her absolute best, though, nullifying one of the opposition's main routes to goal while providing an assist of her own. So I guess there'll be the disappointment of having lost, but in terms of the actual footballing preparation rather than the motivation, I do find this to be a really interesting tactical battle. Never mind the circumstances on the ladder, whereas, every win rockets you up and every loss leaves you sitting 7th or 8th or 9th. Yeah, I think, I'm really excited for this game. I think, like we've said, every game matters, and I think that's a great thing as a player. Like, you want to be playing in those games that mean something, and this on Friday night definitely does.
Looking forward to that head-to-head with Sian Fryer. Should be exciting if that New Year's Eve fixture was anything to go off. Now on to another big fixture that's coming up. It's Canberra United, who are playing host to Melbourne Victory at the nation's capital in McKellar Park. Teo, both these sides going to be desperate for 3 points because Canberra were top of the table just a couple of weeks ago, have kind of moved down a little bit to 5th, but there's not much in it. No, there's not, but their form has softened, and I think putting up a title challenge to Melbourne City is now slipping out of their grasp. But the win away to Melbourne Victory was a real credit to how they played. I think the problem with, as we look at the highlights from last time, they played away in Melbourne and came from behind to win 3-1. I do think the problem with the game against Brisbane was their midfield was just too open, and they let Brisbane build momentum by running at them and flipping the field and taking territorial dominance for a lot of the game. So whether they have to compose the midfield differently to crowd it a bit more, or different players come in, they're going to have to think about that for this particular task. The one thing that Canberra will be acutely aware of is that Victory are winless in 5 and are in really poor form in most divisions of the pitch right now, whether it's shaky goals they're conceding, the midfield not dominating games, or the strikers. And Kennedy White, 7 goals this season, but should have many more because there's been some really good chances that haven't hit the back of the net. Annabelle, in that big blue, like you said, Teo, it was Victory who dominated shots, possession, just weren't able to find that end product. What do you think is not quite clicking for them? Because you did mention even earlier off air that Emily Gilnick's no longer there, but surely they've got enough quality and squad depth to still get the job done. Yeah, I think they do, but I think maybe they're trying to find that team chemistry. No Policina now out with a broken arm, so new players come in there, and then we've got Silveska coming back. So I think they've had a little bit of chop and change, and I think an underrated thing in sport and in football in general is getting that connection with your teammates and getting that exposure
what kind of ball a player likes or where they want it or this or that. So I think it'll still come. I feel like I do say that a bit every week with victory, just because I think they're such a proud team and a proud club where, they're wanting to come away with wins and they haven't been. So it's going to be a really good game and I'm really excited to watch it.
Looking forward to it. And another massive fixture that we're all marking down in our calendars is that Sydney derby at Allianz Stadium. This will be a double header with the Isuzu Ute A-League fixture as well. But it's the Wanderers who are heading into this game with a win. But Teo, it's been 7 old years since the Wanderers last picked up a win against the Sky Blues. If there's ever a time to do it, it's now, because Sydney have only scored a goal in their last 6 games.
Yeah, 1 goal, and of course they'll be coming off the midweek turnaround from playing in Perth on Wednesday night as well. So yes, if Sydney win, they could be bringing in a bit of momentum, but it's a short break coming back from the West regardless. I think the Allianz Stadium factor, potentially the biggest crowd for a game this season, is also going to play into it. Annabelle, if not now for the Wanderers, I guess the question is when, because they've been agonisingly close a couple of times. There has been a couple of 0-0 draws in this run. It's not like they've lost every single derby. But given that you've seen them firsthand at the weekend, what does Sydney need to be most worried about heading into the derby against the Wanderers?
I think just worried about their speed up top. Obviously, like I've said before, confidence in a striker is a dangerous thing. And I'm sure if I'm Holly Casper's coming off 2 really good goals against us, that she's going to be wanting to get on that ball and find the back of the net again. So I think, Sydney FC have to be a little bit cautious there. And a derby is always a little bit more exciting, a little bit more on the line, a little bit of pride. Like, I know both these teams are going to want to get those 3 points. And I think for Sydney FC, they really need to galvanise as a group, especially with the Perth trip in the midweek. I think you just, it might be tough physically, but mentally does it bring the group closer together and they're willing to fight a little bit more.
This may age poorly, but if Sydney win away in Perth and then win the derby, they'll be on 17 points. And right there, not just in the mix for finals, but in the mix for second
That's
place.
actually wild.
They can change their entire season in the space of a week, which is why, yes, the goals have dried up. They're not playing particularly well. They actually are heading into this Perth game on their club record winless streak of 7 in a row, but 1 more week's grace. If they don't win the derby, then we come back next week and we really start the Inquisition.
Well, we did give Sydney kind of the benefit of the doubt last season, but they do need to start picking up the pace. They got a great record against Perth as well, so we do hope to see a competitive game nonetheless. But now it's time to have a look at where your teams are sitting in the Ninja A-League ladder after 14 rounds. And it's Melbourne City, top of the table. Wellington Phoenix, Canberra, Brisbane and Central Coast, all on 18 points. And then we've got Victory and as well as Adelaide United. Right at the bottom there is the 2 Sydney teams as well. Now, when we look at the fixtures coming up, there is a whole lot to get excited for as well. It is that Adelaide United Melbourne City game that has been rescheduled. So that's been pushed to Saturday, but the action will all kick off on Friday first when Brisbane hosts Central Coast Mariners. The derby, as we spoke about, Canberra United hosting Melbourne Victory, and then Newcastle Jets looking to get one over against the high-flying Wellington Phoenix.
And that game has flown under the radar because Wellington had real issues with Newcastle last season. Lost in Newcastle, had to come from 2-0 down to beat them in Wellington, and then earlier this season, 1-1 draw. So they call it the mini Kiwi derby because of all the New Zealand connections at the Newcastle Jets. And I think that is a bit of a sleeper to be a really special way to end the weekend of football.
There you go, one to keep an eye on. And also rooting for Annabelle against Brisbane Roar as well. Best of luck for that game. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me for another episode of Dubzone. But there is so much Ninja A-League action to feast on this weekend. And be sure to also stay across the A-League's YouTube channel, website and socials to stay updated on all things A-Leagues. We will see you next Wednesday, but until then, it's goodbye.